My watch has 12:35. Alain, are you ready to go? Okay,
Ready to
perfect.
go? Can you see my slide?
I can see your slide. The power of shielding the team to get results. Okay, welcome everybody to our first afternoon session with Alain Lebec, who I have the pleasure of introducing. And when I say I have the pleasure of introducing, I genuinely mean it in this case. Alain is a colleague, a friend, an inspiration. I love hearing his thoughts on lean, hearing about his projects and what he's up to. He is a government and lean transformation specialist, accomplished in strategic change management and project management professional with over 30 years of diverse professional experience. I like hearing his stories about his time in the military, about his time at D&D, and his post-public service career as a consultant. A broad range of training, a broad range of expertise, including high visibility, multi-stakeholder projects, high performance teams, portfolio management, networking, leading and guiding cross-functional staff, and implementing strategic transformation plans and IT transformations. He's a proven ability to mobilize and lead teams to meet deadlines, objectives, and budgets. And all of that I can personally attest to, is very true. So we're in for a real treat with his presentation. Small bit of housekeeping, just a reminder that this is being recorded, and I will endeavor to launch the poll correctly at the end, as well as I'll try to manage the questions that arise in the chat for us. So,
Okay.
Alain, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Tim, and good afternoon, everyone. First session after lunch. Hopefully, we're all re-energized and ready to go. So let me dive into the presentation. And yeah, it's about what I call the power of shielding the team to get results. So let's jump quickly on have a look at the context. So the focus again of this session is really on the team's ability to get results. It's always something that I'm kind of curious about. All different teams succeed better than others, and a bit of the getting into the why. So we could get could be results on a project. It could be results on process improvement, just simply your day to day as you're working with as part of a team or supervising a team. So a couple of questions for you. I like asking lots of questions, and I like it also. The way I introduce the subject is for you to do even some self analysis on how you think things are going on your side and with your team. So here are some questions in terms of how's your team organized, how does your team operate, are you getting the result you're looking for from everyone, and does your team have again this environment, the system to be successful? So those are a bit of a food for thought in terms of that context, and really, how does the team deal with what I like to call, sometimes the interruptions you see around or volume of emails? We've seen these volume of emails increasing over the years. And then, pretty much in 2020, when I was at Environment Canada as a public servant, MS Teams chat was rolled out to Environment Canada, and I think most of definitely the federal government with when COVID hit. So then that added also to the volume of chats happening in MS Teams. Um, how does the team deal with having to provide a status update for project you're working on or so on and so forth? How do we deal with new priority of the day? And how do we manage these urgent files? And what about meetings? I have to go to meetings and meetings. Did I say meetings? And more meetings. So when you put all this into the perspective, sometimes you're trying to understand, why, are we still getting the results we're looking for as a team, and how's the team coping with all these what I like to call obstacles. So as I mentioned in the intro, is I've been managing projects for over 20 years, big or small, complex, not as complex, multi-million dollars, and to even smaller budget, but at the end of it, I always get me a bit curious. Why can't I get more consistent results? And that's how I got into, just using my little 5 why tool that most of us in this lean community are familiar with, asking, trying to get to a bit of that root cause analysis. You could come to many root causes, but this one when I was drilling, and the one I want to focus on today is one of the root cause I think in getting these mixed results is the team not being shielded or not being what I call like protected properly. So, question again to ask ourselves is my team does my team like do we operate within kind of a system, an environment that empowers them to be successful? And that's what we're going to be diving into today. So that's the objectives. Looking at it, my three key objectives for the day is again understanding what I like to call these obstacles that could negatively impact the team, and as leaders, what do we need to do to help the team? And again, what should leaders even experiment with to help build the environment that your team maybe can operate within, the system they can operate within to be more successful? So I'm also providing some, suggesting some experiments maybe that you'd like to try after today. And they're not. I don't think they're that complex. That's what I'm trying to make it, really kind of realistic, so that you have the time and the capacity to give it a try. So first thing first, there are, the most frequent obstacles that I tend to observe. So if we have the team in the middle and using an analogy of the umbrella. So if my umbrella is closed, so basically I'm not shielding my team, like what are the things that will kind of gravitate around the team? What are these the reasons of the different interruptions, that might get in the way, but what I like to call like obstacles. So, you know, this urgent file, we need that. It seems that everything is urgent, and that's the next fire that, we're running around with fire extinguishers. We see it with many teams, unfortunately. There's also this inability to say no. Like that could be probably maybe sometimes a career limited move. So it's not easy to just say no. So again, the team feels they can't push back. How do we deal with all these priorities? There are so many priorities, and my workload overall, the workload of the team is unmanageable. There are so many interruptions, and for those who've done some of our lean training, as you know, um, a study from Gloria Marks. Dr. Marks mentioned that I think it's anywhere from 18 to 21 minutes is the cost of an interruption. So when you ask yourself, how many interruptions you get in a day, how many interruptions my team gets in a day, it really adds up. How about all these emails and the MS Teams chat? They're a form of interruption as well, and a lot of CC'd email that I have to get through, and that takes a lot of my time. Not necessarily where, it's not necessarily where I can provide the most added value for sure. And these meetings, all the meetings we need to go to attend. Sometimes there's like we're 4 or 5 of us from the same team attending the same meeting, and it seems to be a bit of killing a bit of the vibe, and just not be given the time to get things done because of all these obstacles. So who's to blame? Well, the natural thing to do would be to blame the team. If you're that manager, you're that supervisor, you're looking at it, or you're like, well, that's just the reality we're in. Like that's, so, I think the team's trying to do well, but I don't think they're managing it properly. But there's also easy to blame also senior management because they're the one bombarding you. Oh, here's the next urgent file. Please stop whatever you're doing now and jump on the next one. So leaders, again, tend to focus about the results. And why is that? Because, again, we like to focus about results, look for that final report, the shiny objects, and not necessarily on the team. And unfortunately, leaders also tend to focus on the goals, and they neglect to invest on what I call the system and the people side that will help achieve those goals. So as Mr. Edward Deming would say, a bad system will beat a good person every time. And I don't know if you knew this, but 94% of problems in the business are systems driven, and only 6 are people driven. And that's why trying to put it, I keep talking about, building this environment, building a system to help your team set up for success. So what do leaders need to do? So first, I'd just like to define leaders. So, there are leaders, in my definition of leaders, there are leaders at every level in our organization. If you are a supervisor, a team lead, a manager, you know, that's the directors, like those, that's the audience, that's the leaders I'm talking about. So you have responsibility as a leader, as a supervisor of, important resources to shield your team, to protect your team from all the obstacles I was just talking about a few slides ago. So some of you, the higher you are in the organization, you have more and more resources, more staff to manage. And I would say that this power of shielding makes it even more important. So let's have a look here again with my analogy of the umbrella. So often what we observe is that teams, unfortunately, might not have that system, that environment to be successful. So there's no shield, and they're seeing all these obstacles. So how can we go from a leader? How can we set them up to be that shield, the one holding the umbrella in blue here, the one holding the umbrella, a deployed umbrella when we required. So again, remember we have the team in the middle. In the red circle on the outside ring is what I would call the obstacles that I introduced earlier. So now look at it from the top. If we look at it, and as a leader, we're the one holding this blue umbrella. So we deploy the umbrella and to act like a shield. And let's look at it from on top, I would say. So pretend the umbrella is on top of the team in the middle. And the idea is to build layers of defense that would protect the team. So that's what you see here with the little ring that I'm adding to the slide. So each of those ring would represent, a supervisor, team lead, a manager, a director, and up in the organization. And the blue arrows are those leaders at the different levels of the organization that helps shield, that helps protect the team. So just asking right now, are there any questions on the visual aspect? Is there something you're not getting, is not clear to you right now? I'm trying to represent this multi-dimensional on a flat, as I build this slide on a flat slide. Any questions on, so far are we grasping what I'm trying to communicate? So far, so good. Okay, thank you. Yes, Mel. Good question. We're good? Perfect. So why some leaders are not shielding their team? That's, to me, that's the first question that comes to mind. And again, as Tim mentioned, I've been, with 20 years of service as an officer in the military, 10 years as a public servant, and now my fifth year as a consultant. Looking at it from all those lenses, why some leaders are not shielding their team? I think that sounds like a pretty simple question. Again, from what I'm observing, what I'm seeing is, first of all, it's because it's not easy. And actually, it can be really hard on your reputation. And it will require courage. And often, I'd like to say, this is not about you. As a leader, it's really about the team. It's that team first approach. It's not about your promotion. Again, it's about the team. So often we find, like, I see some people are like, oh, they're really working it for their career. They're trying to really please senior management, and they don't. Again, they're not shielding the team. They're not pushing back those forces I was showing of arrows pushing back, so to protect the team against interruptions, urgent files, so on and so forth. It takes courage to have that ability to say no. So how can you shield this team as a leader, and where should you start? You know. So again, that's why I've been talking. Like, let's see how with these next three experiments, I would suggest, from experience, I would suggest you give it a try. In helping, the next three experiments are a bit of that system, this environment that I encourage you to experiment with to see if it could make a difference. So I think the first one is as servant leader, you need to set them up, set up your team for success. So let's dive into a bit of that servant leadership. So what do I mean by, being a servant leader? So first, again, for your team to be successful, I would say it needs to starts with you, starts with the individual. That's key in change management. So start with yourself. So this first experiment is really how as a leader can I be a bit more about what I would call a servant leader. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to, I'm just going to bring up this video. So let me stop my sharing for a sec. And just give me 1 second here. And so let's say I'm sharing my window. Just a sec, I'm not getting it right now. Okay, so just give me 1 second. To bring up, I'm only operating on one screen today. Apologies. So, Tim, can you confirm you're seeing my YouTube video of
Yep, I can see it.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. So I'm going to show you this 3-minute video. Let's have let's observe what Mr. Simon Sinek, who's this kind of very inspirational in terms of he wrote books like Starts with Why. He's very popular. He does a lot of public speaking, TED Talks on leadership. And let's see what he has to say in this 3-minute video. Give me a thumbs up, please, Tim, if you get the audio.
Leadership is perhaps one of the most misunderstood subjects in business. Leadership has nothing to do with rank. I know many people who sit at the highest levels of an organization who are not leaders. We do as they tell us because they have authority over us, but we do not trust them and we do not follow them. I also know people at low levels of organizations that have no formal authority, but they've made a choice. The choice to look after the person to the left of them, the choice to look after the person to the right of them, and we would trust them and follow them anywhere. Leadership is the awesome responsibility to see those around us rise. Every one of us, can choose to be the leader we wish we had. We lead our teams and we can lead our clients when we decide that we will do everything in our power to see them rise, to see them achieve their ambitions and their dreams. And this is what servant leadership means. I serve your dream rather than you serve my bottom line. And it's totally fine to have financial goals. It's totally fine to have metrics, because that becomes the proof of value that somebody wants to give you their money because they believe in you. It is proof positive. But the best leaders I know are students of leadership. There's no such thing as an expert leader. It doesn't exist. Like there's no such thing as an expert parent. It doesn't exist. Right? We are students of leadership. And even the most senior leaders constantly are reading books, reading articles, watching talks, having conversations all the time about leadership. They're always in learning mode. And I think for anyone who wants to be a leader, you have to choose to be a student of the subject. Like anything, if you want to be good at something, you have to study it. And the most ignored characteristic of leadership, we talk about vision and charisma. Yes, these are important. But I've known some wonderful leaders who don't have huge world-changing vision. I've known some wonderful leaders that are quiet and sit in the corner, but they all have courage. The courage to advance a vision, the courage to ignore the short-term ups and downs of the business, the courage to take risks on people, the courage to believe in people, the courage to speak truth to power, the courage to do the right thing and have integrity. I think courage is a very undervalued characteristic of leadership.
Excellent. Excellent. Any thoughts on this video? I'd just like to open it. Any thoughts on this video? Maybe you've seen it before as well, but just raise your hand and something to add there while I. Yes, yes, Marie-Ève, we will share. I'll share the link to this video. No problem. So that's the idea with being a servant leader. So allow me to just reactivate this. Is Simon? By the way, if you're not familiar with Simon Sinek, a quick intro. He's really this inspirational speaker on business leadership. Leadership's a great subject. I really a bit of a geek, I guess, on that subject. And he likes exploring how leaders can inspire cooperation, trust, and change. And he's really fascinated by the people and the organizations that make the greatest and longest lasting impact. So he's really he's really interesting to. He's got all kinds of other good videos, but I'll definitely share this link with you. So what's this definition? What we mean by servant leadership. So servant leadership again is a leadership approach that puts serving others above all other priorities. Servant leader focus on creating this environment, the system in which their team can thrive and get their highest impact work done. So that's what I like to call this first experiment. So if you are that servant leader, this again being in this assessment, if you are that servant leader, the idea here we're familiar with, the team in the middle. Now you're holding as that leader, you're holding the umbrella for the team. So as the pretend that now you're that servant leader, and where I see, where a servant leader would help protect the team against the obstacles, and now I'm bringing the obstacles that I think are. I'm not saying will be necessarily 100% shielded, but definitely will help. If it's pouring rain out there, I think the team won't be too wet. I think they'll thank you for holding this umbrella, because these are all the obstacles that actually we're trying to minimize in terms of the impact on the team. And where do I see before I go to the next slide? I love this quote from Nelson Mandela, and when Nelson said, it is better to lead from behind and to put others in front, especially when you celebrate victory and when nice things occur. You need to take the front line when there is danger. Then people will appreciate your leadership. And that's why we keep talking about courage. I like what Jinan put in that vulnerability aspect. So to be a servant leader, here are some of the characteristics. There could be a few more, but here are, I think, some that really resonate with me, like courage, the empowerment. It's about, empowering your team to be successful, to set them up, and put that trust in them, the humility, because it's not about you. It's about the team. It's team first. Authenticity, accountability, the acceptance, and building this community and the commitment to growth. Trust me, the employees will do recognize that you're there for them. So again, the benefits of being a servant leader, you're holding the umbrella when the team needs it, when you need to protect them, they need a shelter. And please close the umbrella when it's time to celebrate. When they're getting, a bit like Nelson Mandela mentioned, when I have the team in front to get, to get the good results, to get the rewards. It's not about you. But when they need help, you need that protection, you need to be there for them. This will definitely help build trust and keep the team in this what I call psychologically safe workspace to operate. So does it work? Does servant leadership work? Well, there's all kinds of studies out there, but definitely a growing body of research suggests that again that servant leadership affects followers positively, and followers become more engaged and motivated. As a result, there's a positive impact in performance. I had a really great experience. I had good ones, and I had not as good ones in my career, but one I can speak, from experience. It was so interesting. I was at Indigenous Affairs, and our leader, he was an executive director, and talk about being a shield. He was so good with us, with our organization, a team of there was about 30, 40 of us, and nobody left during that 5 year period while he was there. We refuse, even like some folks refuse promotion so they can work for him, because that's all good. This environment he created, it was so much. We had so much fun that we pass on promotions and all that. Some people, I mean, for sure, if you're ready to go and take on bigger challenges elsewhere, go ahead. But nobody left because they were like frustrated about the workspace, the work pace, place, and so on and so forth. So it was a really really fun environment to work in, and he was one of the really good example of a servant leader. So my second experiment. Any questions on the servant leadership right now? I'll just take a pause before I go to the next experiment. Any questions, thoughts, comments on servant leadership? Good. Okay. Thank you. So with the second experiment, is what I call, I've been talking here about, creating this system, the environment, and I'm like, what is Alain talking about here? What does he mean by that? And for those who know me, I'm a big fan of what we call the team Kanban board. Most of us, I think, are familiar with Kanban board. Again, show of hands, those who are familiar with Kanban boards. Any? Yeah, we're good with that. Perfect. I'll show you why I think a team Kanban board could really help protect this team. So it could really help with this what I call shield effect. So again, you remember we have the team, and now this umbrella is the Kanban board. So if you have a Kanban board to operate with the team, I've been using Kanban boards probably till 2013. That's when I found out about these Kanban boards. So these visible board where the work is presented. I'll show you an example on the next slide. And what I find, again, it's not bulletproof, but it definitely protects the team against many of these obstacles, like the too many priorities, the everything is urgent, the too many interruptions, the overall workload management, not be given necessarily the time to do things, and this inability to say no. And this is how I think we'll be able to. I'll show you on the next slide where I see that protection coming in. So before I go there, I just want a quote here from James Clear. James, again, another those familiar maybe with Atomic Habits. James, the author of Atomic Habits, leaves us with this quote. He said, "The more clearly you know how you want to spend your days, the easier it becomes to say no to the requests that steal your hours." Like he always has these great thoughts, and I thought I would leave this one with you. It sounds so straightforward. Like, yeah, we would say no to this, but it's not necessarily, easy to feel that we have the choice. So here's a quick Kanban board, just a view from experimentation board we do as part of the lean process improvement. There are different varieties of Kanban board, but the key columns we need are the three basic one of the to do, doing, and done. That's as a foundation, that's the minimum three columns you need. Here we have a few more with weighting, and there could be additional ones. So what are the benefits here with a team Kanban board? So if you have a board like this that identifies all the work that needs to be done for the team, I've worked with teams where we had fun with it. It was a physical board, like we're going back to 2013, 2014. And so it was a physical board in the office, and we were really using it with stickies, and everybody got their you get to pick your color sticky, but make it fun, create it for the team. And what are some of the benefits? Well, one, those who are familiar again with our lean principles, is to make the work visible. That's lean principle number 2. So if you have things visible, often you won't have as many questions. It's just it's just the way things work out. Just a sec here. Some people are saying they're not seeing my board. Is that correct, Tim? Can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. Just Shannon mentioned that she might not be able to. I just asked her in the chat. Is anybody?
Okay.
All I see is his introduction. You might just not be synced, Shannon. I'll post a screenshot in the chat. Is everybody else able to see his current Kanban? Okay, perfect. It sounds like you're good, Alain. I'll post a screenshot for Shannon.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. And thanks for bringing it up as well, Shannon. So that's one of the benefits, I would say, of the Kanban board. Also, you will optimize the number of tasks in the doing column, and that helps manage, the workload, and also improves on the flow. So the doing column requires a lot of discipline, as much from the manager than the employees, like the supervisor and the employees. We go in with ground rules of how many doing, how many stickies will be in the doing column. And often we like suggesting start with two big items, 3 smalls, but don't. And actually, if you can go 1 and 1, that's even better, because that's the focus. We don't want, remember, the cost of context switching. We don't want that. So minimize that context switching. So focus on that. It will improve the flow, which again is one of our lean principle. And it's the idea of pulling new tasks into the doing. So again, you're giving that empowerment. I know it sounds small, but you're giving the empowerment of employees. You prioritize the work in the doing with the employees, but allow the employee to pull the work into the doing. So once they're done a task, they go to the next one. Again, I was just talking about this prioritization. So all the work is prioritized in the to-do. If an urgent file shows up, it goes at the top of the to-do, but it's not saying stop doing what you're doing. Because if you keep doing that, employees is like, well, wasn't it important what I was doing? So you have to respect. I gotta say, when I introduced Kanban to my team, especially my first team, I think it was harder on me than my employee, because I didn't realize how much interruptions, how much changing priorities, how much I was putting on their plate. And I was always assuming that, and they wouldn't say no. They didn't want to disappoint me, so they didn't speak up. So coming with this, now we're again setting some ground rules that are really about respecting what you're working on, but also a bit you have some accountability as an employee. You grab a task, Tim grabs a task in the doing. He's saying he estimates I should be done this task tomorrow. So that's good. And if he says next week and I think he can get it done in a day and he's taking a week, then maybe we can chat about that. And it will help, again, Tim now become more accountable to deliver this work. I'll protect him, allow him to deliver, and he's going to feel more empowered to be able to do it as well. So that's super important. And again, if I'm doing work in the doing, now I have an ability to say no if you're trying to fit in this new task on top of what I'm doing. You have to respect the work I'm currently doing, as long as I'm doing it within the time limits that I said I would do it. So you see you're building accountability on both sides. It's pretty powerful. Quickly, I want to dive into the second and the third experiment, they kind of go hand in hand, like they're very complementary. And it's the daily huddle. Again, most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the daily huddle. They're not huge experiments. I don't think I'm coming up with like something like, totally crazy in terms of concept, but it's the idea now, if you have daily huddle with the team, that's your next shield. These obstacles will also be addressed, or I would say, your daily huddle should help protect you from all these other things. And I'll just show you in the next slide why I think that can help. So again, one quote from James Clear is, "You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems." And if you don't have a system, you may have big goals, big vision. You're not going to get there. And James, I think, agrees with me. You're not going to get there. You're going to fall to the system. If there's no system, good luck reaching the goals. So with daily huddle, what are again some of those benefits? It's this idea of the proactive learning. So we meet daily. We're talking 10, 15 minutes of your day, first thing in the morning when the team, if everybody's at work, definitely by 9 o'clock, we have it at 9 o'clock. And it's that routine that we're going to do it every day. So it helps with our lean principle number 3, putting it in action, because now we're problem solving proactively. We empower the team to self-organize, and that also connects to the servant leader. As a servant leader, you're not always the one in front talking. You guide them and you empower them to go and self-organize. So that's also how this comes along. And what you see with daily huddles, it will eliminate a lot of meetings that everyone needs to go to. I have a quick story at Environment Canada, again, with my business analyst team. I was getting so many emails, so many MS Teams chat. It was just unmanageable. And I had so many emails I was CC'd on. I was like, why am I getting this? So we started having these daily huddle, and we had to, really get into the discipline. We had the Kanban board, we had the daily huddle. And once we had those in play, working for the team, we were able to eliminate a lot of the interruptions happening inside the team. I mean, I can't control everybody in the organization, but we were respecting each other's time. And we were also reserving some what I call deep work period, where, if I need to write a business case, in the case of an IMIT business, as an IT business analyst, I need that time to work with my client and prepare a business case, as an example. So we need to set the time aside, block that calendar, interruption free, to allow us to do it. So the daily huddle allowed us to interrupt each other for 15 minutes, talk about the game plan, make sure the priorities were being met, what's in the doing is going to get it done, or do we have any obstacles, to flag that so we can problem solve as a team. And you're going to see, once you empower your team with this, it becomes contagious. They will really buy into it. And that's where, as a servant leader, you're kind of watching. You're seeing that it's working. The team works a lot better, and collaborates a lot better. So, and it will reduce interruptions, will reduce emails, will reduce MS Teams chat. And if it's not good enough, in Environment Canada, I had 2 huddles a day, one at 9 o'clock, one at 1300, right after lunch. And outside those, we would not interrupt each other. Unless the building's on fire, you let me know at the next huddle. That was the ground rule, and it works well for us. So again, daily huddle gives us the ability to say no as well during those times. So give it a try. I think you'll be impressed with the results. So again, how can we shield the team? We just want to do a quick wrap up so we can have open up for questions and comments, and also like to hear from you, from your own personal experience, those who've worked with these kind of systems, and share amongst the group any of the lessons learned. So now we understand, as a quick summary slide, we understand the impacts, how it impacts the ability for the team to get results. We know what leaders need to do, and we understand again the importance of being a servant leader. So are we ready to experiment with especially the Kanban board and the daily huddle with our team? So again, this is where we have James Clear leaving us with, if you want better results, and forget about setting goals, focus on the systems instead. Once you have the system, you're going to see, and I know some people say, well, we need goals, we need objectives. For sure we do. But there's such a focus over there that we're losing sight of how much, the effort it's taking for the team to get us there. We get into all kinds of overtime and busyness and waste that this kind of structured way will help you get there faster, better. So quickly, leaving you with a few reading materials. The first one is on servant leadership, which came from Robert Greenleaf, who that's a classic work on leadership. Then I already talked about Simon Sinek and starting with why, and it's a nice read. And I love this book for sure. Maybe I'm a bit biased with my military background, but this is it's called "It's Your Ship" from Captain D. Michael Abrashoff. He commanded the USS Benfold with the United States Navy. And when he arrived as a captain on the ship, he realized he had to improve like his own leadership skills before he could improve, the whole performance of the ship and the team. So within months, he created a crew of confident, inspired problem solvers, eager to take the initiative and take responsibility for their action. It's a great read. So these first three are really focused on what I call the servant leadership aspect. Then we have Atomic Habits from James Clear. Again, he reveals all kinds of strategy in this book, teaches us how to form good habits and break bad ones. And it guides you in that framework to go and get some results. And finally, my last book, I've read this book a few times. It's called The Essentialism by Greg McCong. Actually doing a quick book club later this afternoon on essentialism. So you're welcome to join me for that. So again, this is where it's focused on systemic discipline for discerning what's absolutely essential and eliminating what is not. So again, those are some reading material that I'll leave you with. And I think it's important. We need to keep it fun. That used to be my dance move in my younger days, but that's beside the point. So I'll stop sharing that. So any questions, observations at this point from the audience?
From earlier in the chat, Alain, Rishikesh asked the question, are there times when servant leadership might not be practical?
Yes, well, initially, a great question. So I would say, from experience, initially, I felt actually when I arrived at Environment Canada, I was put in that, I would say, difficult position of, leading that new team. The team, it was a bit like that USS Benfold, at a smaller scale, where you observe how things are going, and unfortunately that team has been left without a leader for too long, and there's just nothing, like talking about environment systems, there was just nothing for them, and people were leaving. So when I joined that team, half the team had left the building, the other half was probably looking to leave the building. So initially, you don't, like you said, you don't start right away as that servant leader in terms of staying behind, like you have to be leading up front. But the minute you start guiding them and they're starting to walk in the direction you'd like them to go, and we agreed to go towards, then that's when you start leading them from behind. So you've given them the guidance, they're heading in the direction, you give them what I call the left and right arc, in terms of directions and the boundaries, guardrails, and as long as they're within, you allow them to continue. That's what I suggest. That's what works for me.
Thanks, Alain.
Yeah,
That actually talking about the evolution of leadership and meeting the demands of the day and then evolving as a leader over time. It actually flows really next into Regina Ann's question, which is, do you have a strategy for selling the idea of shielding to organizational leadership I
Yes.
find sometimes a team is on board with the idea, but leadership above the team doesn't adhere to honoring the shield.
Yeah, you're right. It's a great insight, a great point. You're exactly right. Often, and I see it in the chat, like you said, like leadership is not adhering to honor that shield. And when you start asking why, often it's because they're focused on the results. And to be honest, for some of them, I'm not saying all of them, but many of them, they really don't care how much effort you're going to put, how much it's going to impact the team, how much effort they're going to put in to get to the results. They're only focused about the results. So there's a bit of an education that needs to take place. So like my slide on servant leadership, when I talk about the courage, the reputation, that where it's really difficult, and the courage is you need to have those conversations. I did every time with my leaders who were not on board with it. I was okay at Indigenous affairs, but global affairs, when I worked there, it was really difficult. Environment Canada was initially very difficult. So they had to understand, and often they don't know, they're not doing it on purpose, but they don't know the impact it has on the staff. They have no clue the effort it took to get us there. So that's part, I would say, of that communication that needs to go up for them to recognize the effort going into it, and also understanding that without the staff, they're not going to get any results. So we need to start with people first, and I would say, if they don't agree to that, then I think we're dead in the water. We're going to have a really hard time. And I would say you need to hold maybe the umbrella with two hands, because it's really they're not helping, but you want them to help you shield as well. As a leader, that's what you need to get them to get on board with. We can, again, you have my contact info. Anyone, feel free to reach out after this presentation anytime to have more chat. I can talk all day, very passionate about it. But thanks, that was a great question.
Okay, thanks, Alain. I'm going to, we do have a couple minutes for more questions if anybody has any, although maybe I'll obligate you to raise your hand, because in the background, I'm going to open up the poll for everybody. So it'd be great if you take a minute, or it's not even a minute, just to fill it out and give us some feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thanks for that, Mel. It's really, you're right. It really connects with what Craig left us with earlier this morning in terms of that connection, roles of change agents and all this. Thanks, David, as usual, always with great feedback with your little video there. Was that you dancing in the rain? Or?
Okay. Just since we have another minute and there's not any additional questions, I don't know if you were there, but in 2018, Ken Miller spoke at our Lean Summit, and he did a presentation that has a connection to yours about horizontal accountability, and a little bit to Regina Ann's question about finding ways for your leadership to identify that they're in the trenches with you. So it was, I think it was making that connection with results and the things that they could be doing to drive results, like shielding the team. So,
yeah. No, that's great. And also, one last thought, I was thinking of to also reconnect to Regina's question. I find that having a Kanban board, because that's what I did. Having a Kanban board for my team, that becomes my communication tool as well for higher up, so they can see what we're working on. We're not sitting, sometimes they can't appreciate how long things take. But your Kanban board, my last column on the right is metrics, and it allows us as much for future work on how much better estimate the effort, but also it helps communicate with the higher ups the effort that goes into delivering, coming up with an artifact or a deliverable. So again, your Kanban board is used in the multifunction as much from the team than to help communicate and make the work visible for senior management. Thanks for that, and thank you everyone for your time today. Thanks Tim for great work at doing the MC.